Hi, and thank you for joining me. This is Ultra Human. My name is Rachel, and I'm here to help you be your best human. And today we're going to do that by talking about how you can be your best human on planet Earth by taking care of our Earth. And so I wanted to talk about the 3 or 4 or 5 R's of recycling, I guess. We're talking about reducing, reusing, and recycling. And today it's going to be all about reducing. And I wanted to talk about why that is really the order we should all be doing these things in. Somehow that gets lost and all the emphasis goes onto recycling. Before I get into reducing and breaking down how we can reduce in different ways that we can improve our own lives and the health of the planet around us, I wanted to mention Paul Wheaton and Shawn Klassen-Koop, who are the authors of the new book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard. It is all about action. And that's really what I hope gets us excited, is things that we can actually do and ways that we can really apply these things to our lives rather than screaming at bad guys and being upset about the inevitable demise of society and the earth. I know that I've mostly focused on things like psychology, but I think that it really does a lot to improve our psychology to know that we do have the power to improve the world around us and that there's actually a lot we can do. I've seen like conversations on Facebook where people say, wow, I feel really small in the face of like environmental destruction. What can I do? And rather than offering like tangible solutions, a lot of the solutions that people put out there are things like, well, you can protest more, or you can write to your senator, or you can advocate for certain laws. It's like, actually, you can do a lot of things in your life right now that do make a big difference. And I think that if we create a culture where it's shameful to waste rather than focusing on how hard it is, I think that we can create a community around us where we support each other in our efforts to reduce and reuse and even recycle when that's what it has to come down to. Our top impact on our environment is actually transportation. I think a lot of people realize that, but if you really think of all of the different modes of transportation, that comes to, in America, about 26% of an individual's carbon footprint. Next highest thing I don't think people think about very much, and that's the stuff that we buy. If you look at all of the things in your home and how much of it ends up back in the garbage, all of those things come together to make up about 26% of the average American's carbon footprint. That's a lot. That's like a quarter of what our impact is on this earth is just crap that we buy and ultimately throw away. Next is heating and cooling our home. That's not insignificant either. In America, that comes to an average of 18% of our carbon footprint. The final impact we're going to talk about is food and food production and how it gets to you, and the residual, whatever's left over or just flat out wasted, is what creates that negative impact. With transportation, I think that we're all pretty aware of and know that we have a lot of options there. We can always walk or bike if those are options for us. Really, if you want to have a sustainable lifestyle, setting up your home in an area where you are nearby most of what you will need most of the time is probably one of the biggest long-term impacts that you can have, because it will set you up to constantly be able to walk or ride your bike places and maybe not even have to have a car. Something I try and do all the time when I am driving my conventional car is consolidate all my errands. I really try to only leave the house in my car if I have several things that I'm going to be doing all at once, rather than leaving the house every time I think of something I have to do, or going to the store without a grocery list, for example, so that I end up forgetting things and needing to go back later. I try and consolidate all of my trips so that I have not only better time efficiency for myself, but I'm creating less of an impact on the world around me by wearing down my car and using gasoline while I'm going to the store or whatever it is I need to be doing outside of the house. Then, of course, if this is available to you and if you can afford it, switching to something like a hybrid or an electric car does have a substantial impact on when you are driving. Using a hybrid, you're going to be cutting down your emissions by somewhere between 25 to 30%, and if you can go full electric, then that will be saving about half of the emissions. I just want to remind everyone that this is just one part of the pie, and I feel like in the bigger conversation about climate change and pollution. We really put all this emphasis on transportation when sure that's going on. And let's all just remember that deforestation is the worst thing happening on this planet. So next is the stuff that you buy. I don't think a lot of people think about how to reduce this as much as how do we recycle? Do I reuse my jars? There's like feel-good things around this that people try and do to improve things, but genuinely just using less stuff is huge. One way that I have tried to use less stuff in my own home, and I think that we've succeeded pretty well, is to go poo-less and to DIY and use few ingredients for as much as we can. I think that it is pretty amazing what you can accomplish with a cardboard box of baking soda and a bulk jug of white vinegar. That will take care of almost all of the cleaning needs in your home, up to and including like doing your laundry and things like that. And if you're not familiar with poo-less, I'm not going to get into that so much right here, right now, although I'll probably do a video on that in the future, and if I did, I'll put a thing for it up there. Look it up on YouTube. Lots of people do it. I no longer use any kind of body soap unless I'm actually like dirty, and I do use shampoo, but I shower probably 3 times a week, and I use shampoo like once. As you may know, if you've ever had like a pet that got overwashed, what actually ends up happening is you overproduce oils, you overproduce bacteria, you have weird smells. Another big thing in the stuff that we buy is clothes. Fast fashion is rampant these days, and although I have nothing against the fashion industry itself necessarily, and I think that to a lot of people that's very important, I do think that we can reduce the amount that we buy by looking to things that are more of a timeless fashion, rather than running out and getting the weird crop top thing that has missing shoulder sleeves and whatever it happens to be. Look for things that are always going to work. Those are the kinds of things that you can invest in once, and if you can find a quality product, you can keep wearing it over and over again, year after year, and it's going to take decades for those things to go out of style. We impulse buy, we go on Amazon, we look at magazines, we try and get the newest, coolest, cutest version of something, and we're really wasting money, and it's having a huge negative impact on our environment. I'm going to put a link down below to one of my favorite documentaries. It's called The Light Bulb Conspiracy, The Untold Story of Planned Obsolescence, and please watch that. It's going to bring us all a lot more individual satisfaction and gratification with our lives if we can really look around us and analyze what it is that we need. What are our needs? What do we really need to feel fulfilled, and then fill those needs, and you come to a point of equilibrium where you don't really need any more, you don't want to have any less because then you'd be depriving yourself, but finding that balanced middle point is where we can really find gratification in life. When it comes to heating your home, I wanted to direct people to Wheaton Labs and Paul Wheaton once again. The book, How to Build a Better World in Your Backyard, is going to have a lot more suggestions around stuff like this, and one of those things is a rocket mass heater stove. If you are not familiar with what this is, I think the science behind it is amazing. It essentially uses 1/10 of the wood in order to heat a regular home. Another interesting suggestion I have when it comes to dealing with how you heat your home is maybe just not doing it so much. When we are constantly inside with a temperature controlled environment, it actually has a lot of negative impacts. And if you think about how long humans have been living on Earth being cold and hot and hot and cold, we are adapted to have those temperature shifts in our environment. And so when we have to generate our own body heat throughout the winter time to keep us warm, it actually is part of our physiology and our seasonal physiology. So being exposed to the cold temperatures more during the winter time and learning how to deal with hot temperatures during the summertime is actually better for us physiologically, and you're going to lower your heating and cooling bill while also help saving the planet. But the best thing that you can do to have a positive impact on your environment is have your own garden. Even if this is just part of the food that you make. It's going to really help you be more in touch with the world around you. There's a slurry of positive health side effects just by gardening and being more in touch with plants and the earth around you. And it's a small way that you can sequester carbon into your own backyard. That's right, if you don't till your soils and if you do a good job of building healthy soils, which will produce a better garden for you in the future, you can also be taking carbon out of the air in your plants and putting it right back in the soil, which is where it belongs as far as us humans are concerned. Another way that you can reduce your carbon impact with your food is by focusing on buying unprocessed foods, going straight to the source like butchers or a community-supported agriculture project, or even the farmer's market. When you get nutrition-dense foods, you can eat less and you will be less hungry. You will also gain less weight from the caloric impact, and you will have overall a lot less waste when you're done. For example, if I go to the store and I get my organic, gluten-free, delicious little cookie guys, they come in a cardboard box, which has a plastic bag inside, which inside has a plastic tray to display all of my delicious cookies. That basically all becomes waste. Some of those things can be recycled, however, as we'll get into later, not all of it can be recycled efficiently, and it takes a lot of energy and time to make sure that those things are reused in a proper way, and it still ultimately becomes toxic yuck in the end. On the other hand, if you go to the farmer's market and you bring your reusable bags, you pretty much come home with twist ties and rubber bands, both of which I use in my own house. I've never had to go buy a bag of rubber bands because I always have a bunch left over from the produce I buy from the store and the farmer's market. You can actually take part in a farm share or a community-supported agriculture project. You can get your meats and your produce from your immediate local environment, which is going to have the smallest impact other than growing your own garden. And finally, eat what you buy. Stop overbuying food. Don't let it go to waste in your fridge. Take a couple nights of the week, probably for most families, look in your fridge and see what's there that you might not have thought to eat. Look in your freezer, pull everything out, and come up with a meal. Sometimes during those times is when we come up with some of the most delicious meals because we start thinking creatively and we have a fun time and our family really enjoys it. Finally, when it comes to reducing, the things that we need to think about most are what are our modes of transportation, the things that you buy and how can you reduce those, heating and cooling, and finally, buying food or growing it. Once again, I want to direct everyone over to Shawn and Paul's new book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard. I will have more on this book later. It has just come out of the publishers, and so I have not read it yet. I do plan on buying several copies of this book, and if I can get enough viewers, I might even do some giveaways through the channel, so we'll have more on that coming up. And in the meantime, you get out there and be your best human. Thanks!